So our success and survival, of course, depends on Krishna because he is the ultimate decider. But it also depends upon doing our part in fundraising. And what is that part that we need to do? So first we need to see how we need to operate or change in relation to the systems that I just mentioned, or how we do not need to change with respect to these systems. We'll talk about both type of systems. So what's our choice? Our choice, as I said, is to either change in response to the changes in the environment, changes in the other systems in the environment, or to remain closed. That's called the open system orientation or closed system orientation. So what you see right now on the screen is an open system orientation. So you see ISKCON in the middle of this circle. That's us as a system. And then there are other systems that we are interacting with that I mentioned: the society, the political system, technological system, ecological system, etc. So how do we respond to or not respond to these changes is called that determines our orientation. So if we choose to interact, if we choose to recognize and adapt to the changes in our general environment, which is comprised of how our economy is working, going up or down, how our society is functioning these days. For example, we have a trend of yoga people, and we have people becoming more and more vegan, and so on. So how can we orient our fundraising in relationship to these societal trends? And then technological trends in fundraising. For example, there was the internet boom, and then we have these days these new technologies where you can swipe your card on by using the swiper on the phone that's offered by PayPal and Square, and many other things. So we have to stay abreast of these various technological trends so we can be more effective in our effort to raise funds. Changes in the economy, changes in technology, changes in society, these are all changes in our general environment, the broad environment. And then we have changes in our specific environment, and that is comprised of your GBC, your congregation, your temple devotees, mayor of your city, president of your country, etc. So how do we then decide whether we should be an open system, meaning we respond to these changes in the general environment and the specific environment, or we remain closed? So a closed system, as you know, by definition, is non-responsive to changes. Or should we walk a middle path, depending upon the time, place, and circumstance, depending upon which country we are in, etc. We may be somewhere in the middle, not fully open, not fully closed. So let's go to the reasons why we sometimes may choose to remain closed or insensitive to changes. Sometimes it may be because we are unaware of the changes in the environment. We do not have the ability to keep track of changes in the society. We are oblivious of changes in the economy, in the technology, etc. Or, as I said, sometimes we may choose to ignore the changes in the society because there's a reason why we may choose to, because we have a certain philosophy, and that philosophy is Krishna is supreme, and then we follow these 4 regulative principles, we chant the names of Krishna, etc. So we have this strong institutional philosophy that we want to perpetuate, we want to share with other people, and if that becomes at stake, then we may choose not to approach that section of the society, or we may choose not to adapt to that change in other systems. For example, general public may not share some of our beliefs and values, so we may choose not to go big on approaching just random people when we are fundraising. Sometimes some of the things that we are raising money for may be considered controversial by the public, so you may not want to approach the public or certain segments of the society. So sometimes deliberately ignoring or being insensitive to changes in our general environment and also sometimes in specific environment may help to strengthen our position. It may help to maintain the support of our constituencies, our close-knit circles. It may help us maintain the support of our regular donors. It may help us to maintain the support of our GBC, people who are above us, as well as people whom we are responsible for. So for that reason, we may choose to ignore certain changes or not adapt to certain changes in the environment. Or as I said, we may choose a middle path sometimes. We may be closed in some respects, but open in others. But we should know that when we do remain closed, we run the risk of losing donations from that segment of the society, of the population. So how can we be effective in fundraising? We should continually monitor the environment as part of our strategic development process. So fundraising is not a tactic, it's part of a strategic planning framework. So as you already know, or you will learn, that in strategic planning we do environmental scan, and there is a specific analysis called PEST or STEEPLE. There are different names, but basically what we're doing is we are scanning our political environment, we are scanning our economic environment, the systems that I mentioned earlier. We are examining or scanning our sociological environment that we are a part of, technological environment, etc. And based on that, we design or we determine our fundraising strategies. So we either adapt to these changes that we foresee or that are happening or that we witness in other systems, or we may try to change the inhospitable, meaning the unfriendly elements of the environment itself. I mean, we are, as you know, as a society, we are influencing, as a society, as ISKCON society, we are influencing the larger society. That's how devotees come to ISKCON and they adopt our values. So we can do that, but if we are unable to change, then we should know that our zone, your zone, may not be able to attract support of your constituents. It may not be able to attract support of the general environment that I talked about. So specific environment and general environment. We are targeting both of these environments to be effective in fundraising. Knowing well that to attract support, we need to scan both environments, internal as well as external, look at the trends. For example, in our internal environment, specific environment, we are becoming a congregation-based society, so we have to be aware of their needs, we have to be aware of their values, and not so much to compromise our values, but to be aware of and see how we can orient ourselves to be attractive to who they are. So for successful fundraising, what should we do? We should, as I mentioned earlier, we should be an open system, we should have an open orientation, be open to change, be always on the lookout for changes in the environment, but at the same time not drift away from our mission to meet donor demands. Now, what are these donor demands that might make So our fundraising efforts should always remain in harmony with our mission and values. We should not compromise our mission and values while fundraising. We should at the same time, so this is walking a fine line, we should at the same time include our donors and supporters in determining these strategies in our affairs, in our strategic planning, so we can respond to the changing environmental needs. As I said, we are moving to a congregation-based model, so it's very important that we keep in mind where they are coming from and what their needs are. Successful fundraising can also act as a catalyst for renewal and commitment. What that means is it can help us, it can act as a team building exercise. If we, for example, want to raise funds to pay up the mortgage on our building, if you have any loan on the building and we do a fundraising, so it might bring the community together if they all believe in that same purpose for which we are raising funds. For example, recently in Nepal, there were earthquakes and there was fundraising done outside of ISKCON to the general public. So because we share this vision with other outsiders that we want to help the victims, the earthquake victims, by supplying them hot meals, they join hands with us. And this is a way, as I said, we want to expand as a society. So this gives us an opportunity to reach out to people who are not part of our specific environment, who are not part of our society yet. So what you as a zone leader, as a zonal supervisor or potential zonal supervisor, what should you do? You should make sure that your potential supporters, persons that you're going to raise this money from, they should view you as a provider of quality services. Now, you know very well what kind of services you provide. So quality services, we have defined quality before. In this case, especially because it's a service that you are providing, quality is a function of both the receiver's perception and what they get. What they get and what they expect. So perceptions minus expectations. If what they get is more than what they expect, then they will be a delighted supporter, a delighted congregation member, a delighted devotee, and they will be more inspired to give you money more than what they would have given when they are not inspired. So it has a direct impact on fundraising to make sure that we are being responsive, you are being responsive, and delivering them quality services that they expect. But again, remember, not compromising our values and mission. Now, the other thing we can do for being an effective fundraiser is to be effective and efficient in delivering these quality services that you have highlighted for your zone. And you already know the difference between effective and efficient. Effective is when you are doing the right things, delivering the right services, and efficient is when we are doing it right. You also make sure that your potential supporters they understand and they accept the value system of your zone, of our temple, of our society. Because otherwise there is going to be a discord and there might be problems with fundraising if there is a discord. Okay, so in a nutshell, what is the systems theory telling us about successful fundraising? That we should not remain in isolation. We should consider ourselves to be a part of this bigger environment that's comprised of social system, economic system, political system, technological system, etc.